afternoon, everybody, and welcome to this month's IQ Academy webinar. Thank you for taking the time out to join us on our bite-sized session this month, where we'll be taking a look at empowering people through great leadership with our very own Julian Smallshaw, Head of Educational Development at IQ. If you have any questions on today's session, you can send these through on the questions panel just to the right of your screen. If we don't get a chance to cover any of these, we will ensure these are addressed in the follow-up materials after the event. We'll also have a short questionnaire that will display at the end of the session today. Please take the time to complete this if you do have a chance, as your feedback just helps us to keep these webinars relevant to your needs. Our upcoming webinars for the next couple of months include Creating Wellbeing with Dr. Carolyn Yeoman of Arcade Wellbeing Limited and Data in the Palm of Your Hand with Clive Mitchell from the British Geological Survey. To register or find out more information on these, please visit the events page on the IQ website, and the address for that is just at the bottom of the screen now. Our branch is also running a number of events over the coming month. Details are available on the current slide. For further information, please contact your local branch secretaries. Their contact details are available on the branches page of the IQ website, and we'll also include the list of upcoming events in the email that follows out next week. And I'll now hand you over to Julian.
Good afternoon, everybody. Have a great lunchtime. It's a pleasure to be with you all, and I'm going to talk about great leadership within the industry. I've been in the industry since I was 17 years old, and I started as a trainee with ARC, now Hansen Heidelberg. And some of this presentation will reflect on some of the experiences I've had over the years. You might agree, you might disagree, but anyway, we'll kick off. So, what actually makes a great leader? So, think of someone who's been a leader in your life. Could be a teacher, could be your boss or your ex-boss. What behaviors did they exhibit to inspire you? I mean, I've just chosen 4 there who I guess either would have inspired me or do inspire me. So were these people that you actually met with in the past or still know? Were they important to you? Did they listen well to you? Did they take the time to understand your point? Were they non-judgmental? Did they give you unconditional praise? Did they allow you space to grow and make mistakes? Did they give freely of their knowledge and wisdom? Did they make you feel worthy and valued? Well, I guess some of those will chime with you, maybe some won't. But all of those factors build into something called emotional intelligence. And it's part of what makes a great leader. We are all leaders. So too often we hear the word leader misused. It's a sad fact that many business professionals don't see themselves as leaders, mainly because leader is a term typically linked to people in positions of formal authority. However, this is a fallacy that undermines performance in all aspects of our life. If, for whatever reason, you don't think you're a leader, then just take a minute to contemplate on the following. Do you know anyone in a management role who doesn't know how to mobilize people towards a valued goal or goals? Do you know people who have no hierarchical authority but are great at leading others? You probably have come across such people. I'm sure you all have. So, what is leadership? So the slide up there says it's an important function of management which helps to maximize efficiency and to achieve operational goals. So there's sort of 3 basic styles of leadership and decision making. There's authoritarian, it's democratic, and laissez-faire. Those are the main 3. Authoritarian leaders, they rule their groups pretty firmly. Democratic leaders try to include everyone in the decision making process. And laissez-faire leaders just let that group function without much, if any, interference at all. And you can actually break this down into further subdivisions. So there's a whole list here of different sorts and types of leaders. So we talked about the 3 main ones, the autocratic, democratic, and laissez-faire, but there's strategic leadership styles. There's transformational leadership, which is again, something that's quite popular these days. Sort of unlike normal leadership styles, transformational leadership is all about initiating change in organizations and groups, oneself and others. Team leadership, there's cross-cultural leadership, facilitative leadership, and there's transactional leadership, coaching leadership, charismatic leadership. And I would say, I'm just thinking aloud, charismatic leaders, Barack Obama on that first slide was probably one that would come to mind as a charismatic leader. And there are also visionary leaders. And this form of leadership involves leaders who recognize that methods, steps, and processes of leadership are all obtained with or through people. So maybe you can see these different styles of leadership within people that you deal directly with, or perhaps you've dealt with in the past. So how important is leadership? Well, it's vital, isn't it? Absolutely vital. So what does a leader do? Well, you would hope that they would initiate actions. So a leader is a person who starts work by communicating, perhaps policies and plans, to subordinates. Motivation, so important, and I could probably talk for a long time on this, but you can subdivide motivation into two specific areas. One would be extrinsic, so that's when you use external factors to encourage your team or your person to do what they want. This could be, for example, pay rises, time off, bonus checks, things like that, or maybe even the threat of a job loss. And intrinsic motivation, so this is internal, and it's all about having a personal desire to overcome a challenge, or it could be to produce high quality work, interact with other people within the team that you like and trust. And intrinsically motivated people get a great deal of satisfaction and enjoyment from what they do. So there's two sort of styles of motivation there. As I say, I could go into a lot more detail. So again, leadership, providing guidance. So a leader has to not only supervise, but also play a guiding role for people that are working for him or her. Guidance here means instructing people to do what they have to do and what is required effectively and efficiently. And another factor with leadership is creating confidence. So this is really important. So confidence is an important factor. This can be achieved through expressing work efforts to subordinates or people that are working for you, meaning and explaining clearly their roles and responsibilities, giving them guidance to achieve their goals effectively. And also it's important to make sure that you hear from employees with regards to complaints or any problems. Just make sure you've got that communication line in place. Building morale, and again, extremely important area. So morale denotes willing to cooperation of the employees towards their work and getting their confidence and winning their trust. So a leader can be a moral booster for achieving full cooperation so that they perform with the best of their abilities to achieve their goals. Building a work environment, so make sure you've got an efficient work environment. This helps in sort of a sound and stable growth. Human relations should be kept in mind by the leader, of course, and we just touched on that a few moments ago. Coordination, really important again. So coordination, this can be achieved through reconciling personal interests with organizational goals within the business. Synchronization can be achieved through proper and effective coordination, which should be primary to the motivation of the leader, just making sure all those dots are connected up. So those are just a few points why leadership is so important. So the next slide says the principles of developing a leader. So if we start with the first point, so development of a strategy for leadership development. So and you can further expand that into 3 levels of leadership, operational, strategic, and also the team as a whole. You can also look at selection of those with high potential of becoming effective leaders. You can look, the third point would be training for leadership. So identify your business training needs in the leadership context and assign them priorities. All important. Moving on to career development, giving a person the right job at the right time. People grow as leaders through the actual practice of leading. And I'll probably expand on that a little bit later on in terms of my past history. Next one will be line managers as leadership developers. So develop the individual's potential and share their knowledge of leadership. Next one will be corporate culture. Now, corporate culture is valued at all levels. We should encourage a climate of self-development in leadership. And then, as we all know, leadership comes from the top and runs all the way down. The chief executive. Chief executive should be leading from the front and who also owns the problem of growing leaders. So, a few pointers on the principles of developing a leader. So, what is the difference between leading and managing? Now, most of you will know this, I'm sure, but I'll run through it again because it is important and there are some massive differences between the two roles. So, the manager will administer and the leader innovates. The manager is a copy, the leader is an original. The manager maintains, the leader develops. The manager focuses on systems and structure, the leader focuses on people. The manager relies on control, the leader inspires trust. The manager has a short-range view, the leader has a long-range perspective. The manager asks how and when, and the leader asks what and why. The manager has his or her eye always on the bottom line. The leader's eye is on the horizon. The manager imitates, the leader originates. The manager accepts the status quo, the leader challenges it. The manager is the classic good soldier. The leader is his or her own person. The manager does things right. The leader does the right thing. So they're just a few points. You might agree, you might disagree, but I like those points, and I think it gets the message over, that difference between a leader and a manager. So we're getting a little bit to the nitty-gritty here. The signs of poor leadership. We've all seen it. We've all been there. We've all been probably involved in one way or the other. And these are just, again, a few areas that, to me, show the sign of poor leadership. So the first one I'm going to start off with is micromanagement. And, you know, there'll be people on the other end of this laptop grinning because they'll have come across it and they'll have seen it. So micromanagers can't resist becoming involved in the smallest details of their employees' jobs, while micromanaging ensures that everything is done, in particular the manager's way. Employees can resent the lack of responsibility and autonomy. So, yes, seen it, been there. Unclear expectations would be another area of poor leadership. So failing to make expectations clear can frustrate employees and hinders their ability to successfully complete a task. Poor leaders might not tell employees when a project is due or might suddenly move up the due date. Project details can be vague. This makes it difficult for employees to guess what factors the supervisor or manager considers important. Intimidation. Oh, again, there's another one. This is intimidation. Again, some of us may well have been on the back end of this as well. So poor leaders may intimidate and bully employees, often threatening them to fire them if work's not completed satisfactorily. Not a good area to be. Poor people skills. Again, another one. Poor leaders, there can be negative people who really don't have an idea how to motivate anyone. They might feel free to share their negative opinions about the company rather than emphasizing the positive aspects of the situation or problem. Unable to consider anyone's viewpoint but their own, poor leaders don't respond well to complaints or suggestions. And again, I'm sure there'll be a few grins on the end of that one. And I've got one more here, which I I really feel is extremely important. Lack of empowerment. Now, the lack of empowerment, this, according to the Harvard Business Review research, has shown that when employees feel empowered at work, it's associated with stronger job performance, job satisfaction, and commitment to the organisation. I've got a bee in my bonnet about empowerment, or the lack of it over the years. More and more powers have been taken off people and from people, and put perhaps more in front of accountants. And this lack of empowerment has had a direct impact on leadership. You know, if you haven't got the power there, then you can't really be an effective leader. So again, there are more signs of poor leadership. There's just a few there I've picked up on, and I guess in my long quarrying life, I'll have come across all of those at some point or one point. So what happens when things actually go wrong? So I've got an example here. A company you probably heard of, well, you will have heard of, BlackBerry. So BlackBerry, you remember BlackBerry? BlackBerry was the ultimate status symbol. We all wanted a BlackBerry phone. So it was the ultimate status symbol, and nobody could fathom having any other type of smartphone. So the issue with BlackBerry is that it had a history of nepotism, which often leads to poor leadership. So the company also promotes people from within based on tenure rather than on skills and potential to actually lead. When competence isn't the primary reason for a promotion, the company will surely sink. So that's a specific example of poor leadership, okay? And we've seen BlackBerry go really down the pan over the years. Another example, a lady called Kay Whitmore, who was the former CEO of Kodak. So failure to adapt to change is one of the biggest mistakes a leader can make, and it might just be the most notable characteristic of one unfortunate business leader in the 1990s that she actually got the strategy wrong. And again, Kodak, although it's still operating, certainly is not the business it used to be. And it was really damaged limitations for Kodak. But again, just a couple of examples really of poor leadership and how it's actually affected the business. So areas of weakness in our industry. And again, it's really me, and really my thoughts on here. We've sort of touched on this already in terms of the sort of weaknesses in leadership in the industry. So areas of weakness in our industry. So things like failing to define goals, lack of delegation. We talked about empowering or not empowering people, not making sure you've got feedback. There's arrogance involved with some people, leading to please, autocracy, lacking that emotional intelligence we talked about at the beginning of the presentation, complacency, inexperience and understanding, and lack of succession planning and training. Now, again, the reason I've put these down is because I've seen it. I've actually seen all of these things over the years, and you could go into detail in any one of those, but you know, those are just a few I sort of chose because I've had a direct sort of link to that in the past. Of course, the great thing is we can remedy all of those things. So how do we address the issues that we've talked about? We have to confront the issue. We have to be realistic here. We've got to confront this issue now, but not just at senior level, but also at all levels within the organization. And I have a particular bee in my bonnet about the supervisory level, the sort of level 3 supervisor foreman level. And I really think over the years that we haven't invested as an industry, particularly in this area. I always see it as a pivot between the operator being it could be the leadership operator, and the management. And it's such a difficult position because that poor person is on the fence between the two sides. And we really haven't given the person all the right skills to help them lead at that particular level. Now, I have to say things are changing, and there's a number of businesses and organisations out there that are putting programs in place, which is fantastic to see. But I remember going in as a manager of a very small site with ARC back many years, my early 20s, managing people in the mid 50s, without any leadership help at all. You were just thrown in. And this has been, it's a sink or swim situation, but this has been the case. You've had to actually develop them yourself. But if we could give people the tools, then it would benefit the business and the individual so much. So I really do have a being and bonnet at level 3, and that's one of the reasons why we tend to concentrate and increasingly concentrate more in this particular area at the Institute of Quarrying. So again, as we talk about addressing the issues, so you need to be willing to change. If you're not willing to change, then things aren't going to change. You need to major on your strengths. We all have strengths and weaknesses, but we need to address the weaknesses and we need to build on the strengths. You need to be honest with yourself. One of the tools that we can use to also help in this area to address these issues is PDRs and psychrometric tests, in particular things like Myers-Briggs tools. I've been a little bit of a skeptic about it in the past, but some of these tools are quite useful to help the manager and can help in addressing some of the issues and focus on some of the issues that need addressing to improve leadership at all levels. And of course, education. There's lots of good courses out there. I think the other thing is, last but not least on this, is also coaching and mentoring. Now, again, it's something that that businesses are looking at doing, and it's a little bit of a haphazard approach in organisations. But again, coaching and mentoring, we have some fantastic people working in our industry, fantastic at all levels, level 3, 4, 5, whatever you want to go to. We've got some fantastic people. Some people that would relish mentoring, with their experience, or coaching, guiding people, making sure they're on the right route, the right direction. And again, one of the areas that we want to look at IQ next year is coaching and mentoring, because again, we see that as a fantastic resource that's a lot of it is probably untapped. So watch this space. And we can improve. Things are changing, okay? Things are changing. They aren't like they used to be when I first came into the industry. Things are heading in the right direction. We do still, unfortunately, have a few dinosaurs that are left there, and they will eventually become extinct, but there's less and less and fewer of them, thankfully. So we are moving in the right direction, but it does need the drive and commitment from our industry to be able to actually do it. Now, I'm just going to end on a quote that I was actually going to say at the beginning, but I'm going to say it at the end now because it doesn't really matter here. It still has relevance. So this is a quote, and again, you might agree or not agree on this. So, we are not born as leaders, but we are born with the potential to become a leader. This potential has to be worked on, and we have to go through a learning experience to equip ourselves to become leaders. Sometimes the potential is realized, and sometimes it is not. Opportunities play a part in this. The best organizations seem to grow their own leaders. The best, the very good, and the excellent do give priority to developing leaders. Now, again, I think that's a pretty good quote, I think. But that's from someone called John Adair, who some of you will know is one of the world's leading authorities on leadership development. So I'm sort of just ending on that, and it's sort of it's an improving situation within the industry, but we've still got a long way to go, I think. But I hope you've enjoyed a few of my words and a few of my thoughts. And thank you for listening on this lunchtime.
Thanks, Julian, and thank you to all of those who took the time out to join us today. As with the previous session, we're making a recording of the webinar slides available for you all to access. So keep an eye out for from an email from us next week with the respective links to that. If you do have a chance, please provide your feedback of today's session on the questionnaire that will be coming up shortly. Thanks again for joining us today, and don't forget to register for our upcoming webinars that are of interest. All details are available on the events page of the IQ website.